talking about is the cost plus fixed fee. And I mean, can you guys tell me that where did you started to miss me? And from the is it fixed price plus incentive fee clear? But did you get me when
Yes.
I was okay? So see, normally the situation like this. See, one way of negotiating is that you don't have any time. Okay, you say that okay, fine. You call a vendor, and you are very much under time constraint. You say that okay, you just tell me in lump sum how much money you want to repaint the entire room and what is the time taken by you. So he says that okay, I'll take 10 days and I'll take $5,000. Fine. So you say that is the firm fixed price and the time is also fixed. Now this is called the fixed price bid, FP bid or fixed price bid. So this is the usual kind of way that most of the clients they like to give out the projects to keep them safe from any kind of market fluctuations. Now if suppose there is a change in the labor rate or the material rate, okay, if any kind of stuff that is needed to do the project work is changed, but the firm fixed price remains usually fixed. Okay, unless and until there is some clause which is going to take care of any kind of drastic situation in the whole environment. Okay, that is the firm fixed price. Now if you look at the triangle, so the seller's triangle is an inverted triangle, so his risk is the maximum. It shows the larger share of the risk on the seller side. Now fixed price plus incentive fee, it's like this. The base price is fixed. Say, what do you tell the vendor that okay, your $5,000 is fixed. So if you can finish the project earlier, say if you can finish the project in 7 days instead of 10, so I am willing to give you $5,300, means $300 extra on top of the fixed price that is the $5,000. So you get 5,000 if you do it in 10 days, and if you do it in 7 days you get $300 extra, but only if it happens in 7 days, not 8 9. So if you do it in 8 or 9, you are not entitled to the extra incentive that is of $300. So the incentive is given to you only if you can do it in basically 3 less days than originally planned. Now cost plus fixed fee is basically you want to get a little bit more smarter with your vendor. So you basically want to get your hands on. So what do you say? You say that okay, I'm going to reimburse you the cost of the material, and you just tell me that what is the rate of the labor on the basis of a fixed fee. I mean fixed fee is the per hourly fee or per day fee, per person fee. Okay, so the fee would basically determine that what is the number of the man hours and what is the total expense of the labor, and the cost of the material will be taken care of you on the actual basis. Now here, if you look at this, now if you intersect this with the triangle on the right, so if you see this, so here is almost like 50-50 sharing of the risk. Okay, so why is it so? Because if there is a fluctuation in the cost of the material, so it's your risk, and seller risk is still 50 because if there is a fluctuation on the pay rate of the labors, so that has to be borne by the seller. Now cost plus incentive fee is basically that you are getting some material supplied. Now you say that okay, I'm going to give you an incentive on top of this cost if you can get me some savings on the material, or if you can get me the materials at a cheaper rate. So you put some incentive there for the cost reimbursement in case there is some saving there. So it is called cost plus incentive fee. And then there is another way of calculating the or estimating the cost of a project, cost plus percentage of cost. Now there are certain kind of work which due to the complexity in nature cannot be determined, that whether the work done should be calculated on the basis of say square meter or square feet, because if you're constructing a road you can say that okay, we have a rate agreement per kilometer. Okay, and if you are painting a room we can have a rate agreement of say per square meter or per square feet. But sometimes the kind of the workmanship which is being done, could be complex. So then you say that, okay, the kind of the total work being done is directly proportionate to the cost of the material. So you say that, okay, the cost plus percentage of the cost will be used to determine the total value of the project. So in that kind of a situation, the buyer's risk is the maximum in the cost plus percentage of cost. So these are the various contract types which are used to basically to negotiate and settle the projects. So you have to keep in mind that what will suit best for your project and you can use that. So as per the negotiation which would happen between the seller and the supplier. So what I was asking you guys that have you any kind of idea about the agreement which has been signed for the projects which you are doing? Is it any of these types? Where do you think is your project contract type? Which contract type is your project? Is it firm fixed price or something else?
Magnus here. Rosalind,
Sorry,
go
go ahead. No, go ahead. Mine is time and material. That's all.
Yeah, so which contract type?
Mostly we have the fixed price.
Fixed price. Does
Yeah.
someone has any other kind of a price contract for the project, say other than the fixed price? Maybe on the per day person rate basis? I mean, so that is dependent upon the number of the people filling in the timesheet. So the people are flexi. I mean, if they utilize more people, so they would be paying more for the utilized man hours.
Okay, Mario. Razum said time and material.
Hmm.
Is that something like cost plus fee? For
Yeah.
example, you are paying in advance, you are paying some kind of licenses, and after that you are going to have only fixed fee.
Time and material would be used, so it is not mentioned here. So time and material would be used for basically for short duration projects. Why is that? Because the time and material is basically is a high risk to the buyer, because it can inflate it can inflate to some big size in terms of the cost. So that is why the time and material is used only for short term projects, because you are not sure that what is the scope, or the scope can expand or scope, and it's very difficult to do all the project management procurement process. So you say that since it's a short term one, so let us take care of the time and the material. So it is somewhat similar to cost plus percentage of cost. So instead of the cost, and instead, so there is cost. So cost of the material, and time is basically is nothing but the actual time of the people. So cost plus percentage of cost is also heavily loaded against the buyer. So the buyer's risk is the maximum. So is the time and material. Okay, so these are one of the contact times. So time and material is used where the project management is taken care of by the buyer. So where it is used, like for example, say I am a software consultant. Okay, I am a software consulting organization. A client comes to me and he asks me for the quotation for getting a project done, and I give him a fixed price quote. Look, this is the quote to get this kind of a product developed by us. So he, after mm, some kind of say discussion, he starts to give me more details. So then I tell him that, look, it's a very short duration project and the details are changing. So why don't you do one thing? So why don't you go for the time and material, since your time is, since your time is not very long duration, and since if you want to make any changes to the size of the people or the labor, it will be flexible for you. Okay, and if you want to make any changes, you can make n number of changes that you want. Because what happens that if you are going in for a fixed price, then it is not possible for the supplier to repeatedly change. So that can escalate the cost of the project. So time and material would be used in case the scope is not very clear, but the time is nearly, well determined. So the rate of the resources and the cost will be taken at actuals. But then it is always at the risk of the buyer only. If the project goes long due to the increased time, the cost of the resources utilized in the project can go up. Okay, especially the work type process, that is the people. Now procurement management plan, basically what is there? The procurement management plan, it describes how the procurement processes will be managed right from developing the procurement documentation, plan procurements process through close procurements, and what are the contents. So it handling the make or buy decisions and linking them into the activity resource estimating and schedule development processes. Then types of contracts to be used, and establishing the direction to be provided to the buyers on developing and maintaining a contract statement of work. So this is the procurement management plan. And what else is there? It has a standardized procurement document if they're needed. So what procurement document could you have is a request for quote, request for proposal, then work order, then vendor registration form, okay, invitation for bid. So these are the standardized procurement documents which could be obtained from the organization process assets. So you just make a list when you are making your procurement management plan. So you have, say, huge list of documents which are available to you. So what you can do that out of the documents which are actually applicable on your kind of the project, you could make a list of those documents only, and you can use them for the procurement management plan. And in the procurement management plan, you list out any kind of assumptions and constraints that could affect planned purchases and acquisitions. Suppose if there is a change request, say in say the additional or increase in the requirement from your client side. If your client increases the scope of the project, he wants some more features to be inbuilt. So you'll have to expand your procurement, as we have understood that scope has an effect on the procurement. And handling the lead times which is required to purchase or acquire items from seller and coordinating them with the project schedule development. So lead times are what? The times which is needed to basically procure or to place the order, because not all the items which are needed in a project they are available off the shelf, and there are certain kind of an items they have to have some sort of lead time they so as the manufacturer can supply them, because there are many manufacturers. So those who are working upon the order basis, they have the kind of items which cannot be made simply because they are very common in the market. So their orders could be, say, one of a kind product out of the entire range of the product. So they will be dependent upon basically your order to plan their supplies. So it becomes obligatory for your company to give the order in a good lead time. And then coordinating procurement with the other project aspects such as scheduling and performance reporting. So performance, whose performance? It's your subcontractor's performance, because you have to see that whether he is completing the milestones on time. His performance will be monitored by you only if you have a subcontractor as part of the procurement. And then identifying pre-qualified selected sellers, if any, to be used. So where do you get the pre-qualified selected sellers? Pre-qualified sellers. So you can usually get them from the organization's procurement department in their list. Pre-qualified selected sellers. Then managing multiple providers. Why would you like to manage multiple providers? Because what happens is that suppose you want to place the order for the supply of, say, 10,000 batteries. Now if you place this on the order for multiple projects, say over a period of time, to one provider only, so rest of the providers might be might be out of competition. So if that happens, so this provider can have a monopolistic tendency to jack up the prices, to reduce, and he might even increase the duration of the delivery. So when you manage multiple providers, so what do you do? That you divide the offers, the purchase orders to multiple provider. Say in this case you want say 10,000. So you say that okay, 2,000 each to each of the 5 providers. So that makes up 10,000. Now if any of the provider fails, so what you can do, you can always take the 2,000, so which could not be fulfilled by any one of the provider, and you can divide it across the rest of the provider, and they will be very glad to supply to you within a short duration or as soon as possible. So which will not have any kind of impact on your project, because there are multiple providers which are available in the market to take care of things. So that's why you are in advantage when you manage multiple providers. Then procurement metrics to be used to manage contracts and evaluate the sellers. So you would be looking at the parameters of speed, you would be looking at the parameters of quality, and you would be looking at many other parameter and metrics to understand that which is a better supplier. So for quantity, quality, timeliness, okay, and replacement of the defective items, and these are the certain list of the procurement documents. So invitation for bid, then request for proposal, request for quotation, expression of interest, tender notice, invitation for negotiation, contractor initial response. So these are certain procurement documents which are used by the organizations from time to time to procure, to buy, to get from outside the project team. Okay, so these are the procurement document. So can you name any procurement document which is not listed here? Can you think of any procurement document? So have you used any procurement document which is not listed here?
Maybe, okay, tender, but it says tender notice. That's maybe the same.
Yeah, tender notice is basically used in the government projects. Okay, so just keep this in mind. Now to conduct the procurements, so what we have to do is that we have to obtain the information about the suppliers. We have to get their quotations and their bids, and we have to get their offers or proposals. So what is the proposal? Basically proposal is something which gives us an idea about the supplier, that what he has understood regarding the supply of the particular raw material, component or service. So in the proposal he would detail out that this is the thing that you are trying to build and this is what I propose. Okay, and then as appropriate, and then you award the contracts to the selected seller. So what is the seller doing? The seller will be just looking at your contract and he would keep a compliance with the contract. So that's what that's what his job is. Okay, to keep a compliance with the contract so that he is considered in time. Now to conduct the procurements, what do you need as an input? You need your procurement management plan. Then you need your procurement documents. So the documents could be your request for quote, etc. Then source selection criteria, the criteria which would tell you that which is an appropriate vendor, and then you would look at the seller proposals, that what things or services they have proposed to you, and then project documents, the documents which pertain to the project standards, project management plan, updates. So those project documents you would take, then you would take the final decision. So that is your buy decision, make or buy decisions. So this is the final decision that you take here as an input. And procurement statement of work. So which statement of work? So this is the statement of work which is basically written by you for your vendor. So why would you write a statement of work? Can you guess? Why do you need to write a statement of work for your vendor?
Those are basically your requirements and what you need from the vendor.
Yeah,
A
because
tracking tool.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's for tracking necessary for tracking.
It is say for tracking, but here you are the buyer. Now you are the customer and you are to provide a statement of work. Now if you think of a statement of work and if you don't provide, then what happens? The seller has no way of knowing that what you want and what he should be estimating and quoting to you. The more clarity that you put into the statement of work, the more better proposal and time limits and cost estimates can be provided by the supplier, right? So that what you get, it works for you. So you don't end up wasting a lot of time in, say, evaluating the wrong proposals. So what you would be evaluating would be the right proposals. So you would be selecting from the right proposals, not the wrong ones, right? So that's your procurement statement of work, gives you the benefit that you get the best out of your supplier. Then of course you would need your process assets, and you may call a bidder conference. So have you attended a bidder conference? You know, a bidder conference, what is it?
Better.
See, bidder conferences are basically where the suppliers they're called to explain the projects. Now in the bidder conference, suppose you want a software, enterprise level software, right? Then you would call all the suppliers who are basically doing software management, or I mean software development companies. So what they will do, that they will come here, I mean come to your place, come to your bidder conference, and to understand that before they submit the bid document, what they are supposed to propose. If they have any questions or queries or any kind of doubts, so they would be able to get a clarity on those from your side. Now suppose if you don't call a bidder conference and with a little bit of explanation in some sort of document or through a medium, you call for the bid documents, then what happens? That you will have lot of bid documents only to discover that a majority of them, they do not suit your requirement. So when you call a bidder conference, the supplier or the possible supplier or prospective supplier, so they have a, first of all, they have a way to know whether they can appropriately bid for it or not. I mean, whether they are the suitable ones to bid for it. And then second, those who think that they can do this kind of a job, so they will ask you questions, so they will get some clarification, they will get some details from you. Okay, so that they will be able to understand your requirement fully and completely and propose to you in an exact solution for that. So that's why we have a bidder conference, to get the right bid, so that you don't end up wasting a lot of time on processing the bids that you don't need. So now can you just remember that have you attended any kind of bidder conference?
No.
No.
Mm.
No, not yet. So I believe that you are not yet into the procurement. Has anybody been involved into procurement, or you are just doing the rest of the knowledge area management? Is there anybody involved in the procurement?
Yes.
No.
So what kind of procurement do you do? Do you do procurement for materials?
Yeah, materials most.
Okay, so what kind of
I'm
materials are
helping
those?
out. Yes, civil works and it's let's call it uh, pumps and valves
Okay, so do you make
and
a
so
list
on.
of the items and you write down the specifications?
Yes, I do all that, and I go to the procurements, and they help me to find
Okay.
where is the cheapest one.
So then you pass it on to the procurement department. Do you have a dedicated set of people? I mean, people in the procurement department to take care of your order.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I have a few I can turn to, so
So they
they're
are the
helping me
ones to
out.
write the purchase orders.
Yes,
Okay. So since you yourself are the project manager, so you have given them the authorization to purchase on your behalf. Okay. So that is the
yes,
first process because someone has to be authorized by the project manager because the project manager is authorized by the sponsor to do the project, and then this authorization, the overall authorization that you have on the project is subdivided further. So someone has the authority to estimate time, someone has the authority to estimate cost or do some work in the cost management, human resources. So you authorized some person to do the procurement. So now proposal evaluation technique. So this technique basically pertain to any set criteria so that when the proposal come in, so how you would evaluate. So you can make a list of the checklist items so against which you look at the proposal evaluation, and you would evaluate that according to a certain level of correctness, minimum bid or minimum number of the amounts of the what we call is the say the minimum certification, then your minimum experience, etc. would be checked
yeah,
for the evaluation. So you set certain criteria, so you run the proposal against those criteria and you just evaluate them. Then you take also independent estimate. Suppose you get certain quotes of rate from your supplier. So independent estimate these days you can go to the internet and you can Google out if you have any kind of pricing which is a little bit different or what you are getting. It can be better from that. So that will be helpful for you to negotiate. So those are the independent estimate. You can get independent estimate when you take estimate from some other sources not listed in your procurement. And then of course you will apply your expert judgment upon the procurement to understand where you can do mostly your procurement from. And then advertising. So basically what happens when you advertise, so suppose you are working in a location where your usual vendors cannot reach, so usual vendors are far away, so you would like to procure locally. So if you want to procure locally, then you have to advertise in the local media and let the suppliers know that you are around here to do certain projects, and the advertising helps you basically expand the supplier list. Then you would apply the analytical techniques. These techniques are basically to understand that which of the proposals they are better, so price wise, time wise, quality wise, because when you're conducting the procurement, it's not always necessary that the supplier which is charging you the least would be able to provide the best service. Okay, so you apply your analytical technique to settle for the most suitable kind of the supplier or vendor, and then you also have to do procurement negotiation with the possible vendor or a set of vendors. So what you get as an output is the selected sellers and the agreement that you can have with them, and resource calendar. So basically the resource calendar would tell you which resources are coming in on which dates, and these dates, I mean, can be used to plan the lead time. So that is the resource calendar would tell you. And change request, if any. So if you are conducting the procurement, the change request can be triggered by the change in the any kind of work, any kind of requirement from your client side. If the client adds something, so you can basically issue a change request to your procurement team to also include those items. So procurement management plan update, and 6 is document update if needed. And this is the explanation for the bidder conference. So the bidder conference, they are meeting with prospective sellers prior to preparation of a bid or proposal to clarify procurement requirements and provide responses to the seller's query. So they're used to ensure that all prospective sellers have a clear, common understanding of the procurement requirements. So this makes the evaluation of the proposals easier. So responses to sellers' queries are incorporated into the procurement documents as the amendments. So bidder conferences are also called contractor, vendor, or pre-bid conferences. So basically in the bidder conferences, if you find that there are certain questions being asked frequently, okay, so there are certain queries, so you can incorporate them into the bid documents as a standard, okay, so that your bids are much better executed. And sometimes what happens, so there are a lot of prospective vendors, so they would filter out themselves on their own because they would realize, so this is something that they don't want to participate in, and you would get the documents for evaluation, so which are more suited for your kind of the projects, and you would basically spend less time going through the lengthy documents to find the right supplier. So that will be much more focused. So advertising, so existing list of the potential sellers can often be expanded by placing advertisements in general circulation publications. And to develop the qualified seller list, so they can be developed from the organizational assets if such list or information are readily available. So what happens that in any organization which has a lot of procurement activity going on, so what they do, they maintain a whitelist. So a whitelist is basically a list of sellers, those who have done business in the past and they have performed well, they have been ethical, and they are timely, so they have met the supply parameters. So you can get a list of the sellers from them, and you can then develop this list further. So you take qualified sellers. So procurement document can also be sent to determine if some or all of the prospective sellers have an interest in becoming a qualified potential seller. So that is the developed qualified seller list. So they are already in the seller list. So if they want to become a qualified seller, so they can express their interest in that. Now screening system is used for the award of the contract. So basically the screening system, it filters out by applying a certain minimum criteria so to be passed. So if the sellers, if they run through, suppose you got 100 prospective sellers and the screening system say would cut down say 50%, so you are left with 50. So how does it work? It involves establishing minimum requirements of performance for one or more of the evaluation criteria. For instance, a prospective seller might be required to propose a project manager who has specific qualifications before the remainder of the proposal would be considered. So that is the screening system. And weighting system, it is a method of quantifying qualitative data to minimize the effect of personal prejudice on seller selection. So out of the 50, so the screening system basically is leaving you with 50. Now out of the 50 you want to use top 10. So the top 10 would be selected by a weightage. So the weightage could be dependent upon the number of the years. The weightage could be due to the the performance stars that they have got in the past, or if they have any kind of certifications. So so that will get them a weightage or any kind of advantage or a better performance done in the past, which is not available for the rest of the sellers. So that is the weighting system. So it is a method for quantifying qualitative data to minimize the effect of personal prejudice. So if it is subject to the audit, that why these 10 sellers they have been selected. So first of all, you can say that out of a total of 100 qualified, 50 have been eliminated by the screening, and out of this 50, the top 10 they have been taken on the basis of this weighting system, so that there is no bias and there is no conflict of interest here. The weighting system would ensure that. So what do we have next? We have the control procurement. So right now till this point, we have been able to select a seller and contract and give the contract award. Okay, and that's what we do. So guys, can we take a 15 minutes break and meet again?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so just yeah, see
Yeah,
you.
sure.
Thanks.
Nej. Just en ord hela. Han är ju fortfarande organizer. Okay, let's start.
Okay, so let's start with the control procurement. So this control procurement is the process which is falling under monitoring and control. So basically we have a baseline against which we want the procurements to happen. And we have to control, we have to make sure that we are comparing the performance of the supplier against our expectations, which are set in the various parameters as in the contract. So this is the process of managing procurement relationships, then monitoring contract performance and making changes and corrections as requested. Review and document how a seller is performing or has performed to establish a required corrective actions. Then managing contract related changes. So this is the purpose of the control procurement. So we look for and we check the performance for quality, for cost committed in case we have say any kind of contract which is having some sort of cost sharing component. Then work progress, the work completed and the timeliness and any kind of defects which need to be reworked. So these are the certain parameters against which we control the procurements. To control the procurements, what we need is the project management plan. The project management plan basically has the procurement management plan as a subsidiary plan inside it, and that serves as a guidance that how the procurement should be controlled. Then we take our procurement documents, the documents which were basically given to the seller to the sellers, like statement of work. Then we look at their proposals and our request for proposals and the documents which are basically part of the negotiation. Then we also take into factor the agreements. The agreements basically they tell us that what are the various obligations of the suppliers as per the contract. And control procurements. Now if you are say having some sort of an say deviation, then there would be change request and the change request would be approved. So if when you look at the approved change request, so basically if you are doing the procurement and if something comes back once again say in a loop, so that would come in with the approved change request. Okay, the change request which has been evaluated to check that it has no impact, it has no impact on the rest of the project. So that is an approved change request. So that would be a sort of a loop, and we take the work performance reports, work performance data. So as per the work which is being done by the subcontractors. Then we have tool and technique, the contract change control system. So normally what happens, see, whenever a contract is awarded, it is basically signed by the project manager and the sponsor, and it is given to the supplier or the vendor. Now contract change control system, it is a system in which the people, those who are authorized to change the contract, because contract once awarded is normally not changed unless and until some very serious deviation has occurred in the project parameters or the project requirements. So contract change control system basically lists out the steps to be followed in case a change in the contract is required. So we apply this tool and technique when we are controlling the procurement. So in case we need to upscale or downscale the level of the procurement depending upon the project needs, so contract change control system helps us do that. Then performance reviews of the supplier, procurement performance review. Then now it's our turn as a buyer to inspect and audit the supplies that our contractor or the subcontractor is making to us. Then we do performance reporting. So performance reporting, basically we want to see that how the seller is meeting his obligation of doing his supplies to us. Then payment systems. So payment systems are basically linked to the seller progress of the work which is being done by him. So payment system basically ensure that if any kind of an invoice comes in for payment, so that is run against the performance, that is run against the progress, so as to make sure that the payment is linked to the seller progress. Claims administration, if you have any kind of a claim, like if you have any kind of a defective item supplied to you, so you can make a claim for that. You can seek some replacement or repair as per the agreement. So claims administration comes into the picture as a tool and technique when you are controlling the procurement. Then comes your record management system. The record management system basically is about maintaining a sort of log about the procurement activities which are going on. So when you place an order, so you note um, the seller, then the details of the order, then the date, and so when things they come to you as a supply, so you note the date on which it has come, and if there is any kind of shortfall or something is defective, so that will go into the record management system, and using the record management system you can track for the defect repair or replacement. So the record management system basically tells all that how the procurement is going to be, how the procurement is going. Now when you control, so you also get work performance information about the seller, that whether he is on time, whether he is on budget or ahead or behind the time or budget. Then change request if any, if you need to basically make the the procurement fit within your requirements. So change request if any, then project management plan updates, then project document updates, then organization process assets update. These are the outputs that you get when you control the procurements. And the control procurement is about the processes which ensure that the seller's performance meets contractual requirements that the buyer performs according to the terms of the contract. Both the buyer and seller control the contract to ensure that both it and the other party meet their contractual obligations, that their own legal rights are protected. Like the buyer has the right to get the stuff on time, and the seller has the right to get the payment on time. Okay, so both of them are protected by the agreement or the contract. On larger projects with multiple products and services, a key aspect of the procurement administration is managing interfaces among various providers. And while procurement controller may be on the project team, this individually typically reports to a supervisor from a different department. For example, so the procurement controller could be reporting to the procurement department head. So because you need this specialist functional department to be able to say write lots of documents, like you have to write legal contracts, you have to maintain a list of the suppliers, you have to maintain a list of the blacklisted suppliers, so you have to maintain a list of the items which are in stock, you have to maintain list of the items which are very frequently used, okay, and list of the critical items which have to be maintained. So the procurement department, it helps a lot in all of the projects basically by easing out all their procurement activities through this individual. So who is basically taking the requirement from the project team and converting those requirements into work orders, purchase orders, contracts, and ensuring the better choice for the project team to fit within their time, cost, and scope constraints. Okay, so you have to also have a financial management component that would involve monitoring of payment to the seller, and that would ensure that seller compensation is linked to the seller progress. So as the seller is progressing, so is the compensation happening, right? And procurement control also includes managing any early termination of the contracted work for any reason, cause, convenience, or default. Suppose if you have a trim down in the project requirement from your client, so that will have a ripple effect on your procurement as well. So you'll have to trim down your I mean offtake of the raw materials or the services that you are taking from your suppliers. So then you might need any early termination. So the terminations usually they have some sort of say compensation plan. Okay, inbuilt. So the compensation plan basically would ensure that there is a fair termination. Okay, so the fair termination would ensure that in the future the contractor feels good about doing business with you once again, so that there is a trust. So control procurement is basically about upscaling or downscaling or any kind of changing requirement, and it is also about monitoring what has already been agreed in the contracted terms of the agreement and in the various specification as per the procurement documents. So that has to be ensured in a timely fashion and in basically meeting the specifications. Procurement control also includes managing any early termination of the contracted work for costs and in accordance with termination clause of the contract, so that there is a fair compensation in case you have some unused period of the contract. Now we come after the work in the project is completed. So we come to the closing process. So in the closing process, we have close project phase or close the project. Then we have close procurements. So basically the completion and settling of each contract. So we both the parties make sure that they have delivered upon their agreements and promises to each other, and that includes the resolution of any open items and closing each contract applicable to the project or a project phase. So in this we make sure that it can handle any early termination if there, or the basically the completion of a contract as per the full term, and then we apply the close procurement process. So we close the procurements basically as soon as our work is completed and all the items and the receivables they have been received. So what are the inputs to close the procurement? We look at the project management plan, and then we look at our procurement documents, and we do the procurement audits. We basically go through the list of the items and the services that were supposed to be outsourced, and we do the procurement negotiations. So the negotiations basically they enable us to settle any kind of say shortfall. Suppose if something came late, so I would negotiate with the supplier to take some discounted amount as payment as the last milestone payment. So this is something which happens in the close procurement, that when you make the final payments, so you negotiate for anything which has been say so not meeting your standards or something which you think that deserves a compensation by the way of discount. And then records management system, you would need to basically look over that how the procurement was going and what came and did not come, and if you have any incident which does validate your, which justifies your need for a negotiation, so that can be recalled and that can be presented to the supplier. So what do you have as an output when you close the procurement? That you have closed procurements, and then you update your organization process assets as your output. So when you close the procurements. Okay. So procurement audits. What is audit? Audit is basically checking out the current state of any project against the desired state. So which is basically a list of the items against which we run the audits, we run the comparison. So it is a structured review of the procurement process from the planned procurements process through administered procurements, and basically the objective of the audit is to identify successes and failures that warrant recognition in the preparation or administration of the other procurement contracts on the project or on the other projects within the performing organization. So if you have a certain process in which a certain undesirable or some badly performing contractor was able to get through, so you would like to make some changes to your process. Okay, so that you always get the better performing suppliers, more vetted suppliers, and the suppliers those who can help you get your job done quickly, and who can help you get your job done as per the specifications. So those are the desirable ones that you would like to interact with, that you like to get your services from. So that will be visible in the procurement audits. So you would basically be looking at any kind of processes which would help improve the situation, and basically you will have only the best procurement happening. That is the audit. Now you know what happens. See, when the project managers or the procurement say person who has been designated to do the procurement, now when they are facing the marketing people, so the marketing people, they use a certain kind of techniques to induce you into placing the order. Now this is something that you should be aware of, so that you can basically do a procurement which is more suited to your project, not suited to the seller or the buyer. Deadline. Imposing a deadline to reach an agreement. You know, this is something that you might have seen by the marketing companies. You know, they are doing specials, they are doing, say, festive special, season special, this special, that special. But if you look at their average rates or the prices, market prices throughout the year, so they might be the same. So this is called a deadline. So a marketing person persuade you to sign a contract or place the order, because he is telling you, he would be repeatedly telling you that if you place the order as soon as possible, so you won't be basically paying the high rate after a certain time, as the prices are going to be pushed up. Okay, so that's a deadline. So guys, did you face any kind of a deadline, kind of a pressure while
Every
you're
time.
doing? Every time, you know, they tell you that,
Yeah.
so this is a very special time to sign the agreement, and if you don't do it, then after 15 days, so there will be
That,
upgradation in the rates, the selling rates, so you'll be at a disadvantage. You won't be able to get the discount otherwise. Okay, so can you share any
uh,
instance?
yeah. I face deadlines all the time in my projects.
So how do you handle
Uh,
those?
I handle those very good, I hope. Uh, uh, my deadline it's only often 30 days or 60 days to fulfill the order. They are, if I don't do that, they cannot deliver our things in the right time.
Mhm. Okay, so those are basically the lead time. So when I'm talking in terms of the procurement, so do they also tell you that if you place the order before this date, so you'll have an advantage of price? So I'm talking about the deadline which relate to the price. Those deadlines are fine, because you know that would be the usual delivery times, because there are certain items which are not available off the shelf. Okay, there are certain items they do need some planning on the side of the manufacturer, so they don't want to keep any kind of say idle inventory. Okay, so that they can manufacture only upon the order. So do you face any deadline where the marketing guy tells you that if you place the order before this date, so you qualify for a discount, or maybe the rates are going up? Have you faced any kind of such a deadline?
Yes.
Okay, so
Uh,
does it happen too often, or it is just one of a kind which happens once a year?
it happens say 5-6 times a year,
Six
not
times a
more.
year? Or do they say that if you
Yeah.
buy, if you place the, we are doing Christmas specials, if you place the order for these pumps, so they are going cheap, and after the Christmas, Santa Claus no longer would be around to give you any kind of a discount. Okay, we'll be running short of supplies.
Yes.
So
That has happened. Yes.
yeah, okay. So you know, that's why, I mean, it is the observation of the PMI, and PMI wants you to be aware of these things, so that there is no tilt in your procurement process. Now what happens that you might end up taking a wrong stuff, or you might end up pulling in the wrong vendor. Okay, if such kind of techniques they work upon you, what they want you to do, that you should think process, apply process, do process based work, right? So you are basically not affected by any kind of this negotiation techniques, because they skew the processes would which would otherwise help you in getting the best in terms of your project requirements. Now stalling means that suppose a marketing guy comes and negotiates with you, and he has been provided a lower limit. Suppose he has been provided a floor price of say $2,000, and your negotiation starts with him at $3,000, and you bring him up to say down to 2,500 per piece. Now he would stall at 2,400, and he'll say that no, I cannot reduce the prices any further. I cannot reduce the prices any further because I don't have the authority, or I have very limited authority to do it. Have you faced any kind of a situation?
No.
You haven't talked, but someone else here has faced this kind of a situation, which is stalling.
Yeah, some time ago.
So how do you deal with that? I'll share my experience. How do I deal?
Well, generally you say if they're not make a decision, either just mail you. I mean, if they're going to take the offer to their manager or whatever and be able to reply within a very short time with a positive answer. Otherwise, you take your business somewhere else. That's what we usually did.
You know how I deal with this
Just
stalling.
to gain some time.
If the marketing guy comes and tells me, no, I cannot go below this price, I'm not authorized to do it. So what do I do? That I just tell him, just no problem, just relax, man. Just tell me who can do it. Just give me his mobile number. Okay. So after taking the mobile number, I talk to that person. Look, your marketing guy is here, and he's basically stuck for a decision. So he recommends that I talk to you. So we want to place the order immediately as soon as possible. So tell me that if you can go down on further below this. And he says that's a possibility, and he agrees. Okay. So what I do, that I put his boss on the speakerphone and let him listen in. So basically we just settle the deal. So I use a sort of reverse negotiation technique. I reverse the table on them. I tell them that your guy feels that it can be done. Your boss does have the room to bring it down any further, but it's not him who can do it. Okay. So the boss feels that so now the ball is in my court. Okay, so this is a make or break deal that the customer either would place the order or not place the order. So he feels a lot of tremendous pressure and obligation to basically make the deal go through by bringing down the prices further. So guys, so do you see my point now? What I'm trying to tell you? How you can
Yep.
break through the stalling? Okay. So if you face any kind of a situation, try this works. So if someone says that I can't do it, then just let me know who can do it. So you talk to the person right away and make sure that he is in the loop. So do it in front of him, and that's it. And fair and responsible, a negotiator may claim that a price for a product is equitable because that's what another company is paying. Now, so how do they do it? Basically, the guy who is trying to sell to you, he will pull out lots of purchase orders, and he will show you the prices at which he has got the purchase orders. So this is fair and responsible. But you have done your research, you have done your studies. So basically, you have gone through the internet and found out that there are various other suppliers who would be willing to supply. They'll be glad to supply to you at the same specification, same item at a lesser price. So basically, to cut through this, so what you can do, that you can ask him to wait for a while and show him your your result as you found it on the internet or some reliable source. So once you quote him the source, so you just tell him that what to do now. So even that works through. Okay, even though there are many purchases, so it's not necessary that everybody is a very good negotiator. So they might have negotiated a fair price. So you don't have to pay a price that someone else has paid. It is not necessary at all. You should always try to find your own best price if that can be better. But if you feel that it cannot be better anymore, so you can settle for the price, which is basically you think is an average price throughout. So even that is okay. Now we go to the next one, that is the delay. So delay is useful when tempers are beginning to flare to divert from the subject. Now delay is something that I have faced. How it works basically, when you are purchasing some big items, you might be going to the facility walkthrough. Suppose the supplier has invited you or the manufacturer has invited you to his premises. So he says that, okay, you can come and have a look. So we have standardized manufacturing facility, this and that. So he would try to impress you. But the thing is that you basically took out certain time to do all this stuff, okay, to negotiate with him. So he is aware of that. So what he is going to do, that he is going to make you just wait. So while he would say that he is a little bit busy, so he is going to make you run out of time, and when you have very little time, he will come and meet you and rush you and hurry you up in placing the order in his favor. Okay, so if you are feeling angry or irritated, so he might load you with refreshments and etc. So that is called delay. So what does the delay do? It cuts down upon the time which you would otherwise use in negotiation, in bringing down prices in your favor. Do you get the point? Did you face any such kind of a situation in your procurement? Delay?
No.
Not yet. So, but
I
did you?
would like to.
Yeah,
Do
please,
you
please.
have a sample from the reality? Because I don't really get this point.
I just shared it because see, I had gone to a vendor. I had walked through his premises, his manufacturing facilities, and I was impressed by his standards and all that. But I knew in my mind that I could talk to him and bring down the prices. So normally, he would show that he is very busy. So these guys know that the buyer has come with a limited time, so he's trying to reduce the time for negotiation. Suppose if I went there, I say that I'm going to give you half an hour's time for the meeting, so he would use 10 minutes to show me his manufacturing facilities, his quality standards, and all that stuff. And he knows that if he sits in front of me for 20 minutes, I'm going to hammer him down to agree to a lower price. So what he does? So he basically acts a little bit busy and he meets me only at the last moment, say during the last 5 or 7 minutes. So I do not have the upper hand because I have to place the order and go. I have to go and attend to
Okay, I
my
got it.
business. Okay. So that is
Okay,
when it
thanks.
is. So you might face this if you have some sort of, I don't know if you would be facing in your projects, but this is something which we sometimes face, that if you are buying something personally, okay, and delay is basically um, is a sort of common in Indian subcontinent, and it's common in the Middle Eastern. So I don't know what's the kind of, I mean, buyer seller culture you have. And withdrawal, one party may attack an issue then retreat. So what happens? A seller might boast, you are asking me to reduce the prices. Basically, I would like to tell you that this item is in short supply and I'm the only one who has the stocks in the entire market. So if you don't buy from me, you might lose even the chance of getting this item. Sometimes it happens. So then I call up my contacts and tell them if such is the situation, that can I get this item somewhere else. So then I tell him, look, you don't have to make such a boast. I can readily get the same item in some other places. Okay. So then retreats. So then that guy retreats. So have you ever faced this kind of a situation?
Not yet.
I face this situation many times when I'm doing some retail shopping, means for my personal. So the shopkeepers and the retailers, they usually say that we are doing the best prices in the town. Okay, so if you want to buy something, so this is the stuff we have, and we are doing the best price. You might not even get the item because because they can judge that if you really like a particular model of a product. Okay, and they say that this model is so exclusive that only they are the authorized ones to sell this, and not other retailers can provide you even this item. So it will basically make you feel that if you don't buy it at this price, so you might not be even able to buy it. So what he is doing, he is basically attacking, you into thinking that by boasting that this is something that only he can do, and you
I
don't
think
have
it's
much
also
chance. Yeah,
I think it's also an act like extortion, right?
yeah, act
At
like an
least he
next.
tries to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it is just a momentary thing. It's a very human thing, and they have tried and tested this technique on many people, and it works. So many people, they are not aware that what's going through, so they sometimes they feel that they must take it, or they might have to return empty handed, or this if this item goes out of the market, if the stocks run out, so then they might have to settle for something else, or might have to wait till the fresh stocks arrive after some time. So that is some kind of a boast. Okay. And then when you can prove that no, it's not true, well, then they retreat. They say no, it was not like that, it was something else. So that is retreat. So then comes the arbitration. What happens that if you're buying, so some kind of association of the buyer or the seller might be involved, and when the agreement cannot be reached for the negotiation, so that is arbitration. So arbitrations are usually basically they happen in a non-legal fashion, but arbitration can reach some legal point also. Okay, so these are the negotiation techniques that you guys have to keep in mind. So when you're doing the procurement, so that you can do the procurement in the right way. Now, normally what happens that most of us are not faced with the procurement works in the beginning of our careers. I didn't face any kind of procurement because, especially coming from the software background, we hardly procure anything. So we are mostly concerned with man hours and then time constraint. Okay, so these are our major focus, and these are the functional specifications and all that stuff. Those are the major focus, not procurements. But once I learned procurements, I was able to handle a system integration project in which the project where I mean I was required to purchase the hardware and set up a complete data center. Okay, so there were two things which are happening in parallel. One is the hardware and one is the software. So both of them were part of the project, and both of them were being managed simultaneously by me and without much stress, because I was aware of the PMI processes. So I looked at the PMI processes, then I looked at my organization's processes, and I tried to find out the process assets as PMI recommends to me. So when once I looked them through, so I was able to handle this. So that's really very good. So if you know the concept of the organization process asset, so then you can ask the procurement department to provide you those assets, those processes, so that you can do the procurement work if you haven't done it before. So negotiation techniques, keep in mind how you can be subjected to this and how you can safeguard yourself from taking the wrong decision. Now there's another technique, that is the fait accompli. So a party may claim that what is being asked for has already been accomplished and cannot be changed. So if you wanted certain feature or a certain performance level in the product, and if it doesn't fall through, so he might show you certain parameters, or he might talk you into believing certain parameters that have been met, and that cannot be made any better. So how do you cut through this fait accompli? So basically you can go for the joint testing, okay, to see that whether it is really meeting your requirement or not. So that is the fait accompli. So this is also a negotiation technique. So basically if you are subject to this technique, you might end up with a inferior quality procure stuff for your for your project, which can hamper your product delivery. So make sure that you can see through this and you can cut through this to get the right stuff only. So that is the purpose of the procurement management processes. So there are two terms. One is the single source, one is the sole source. So these terms are being discussed here so that you are not confused, because in the exam these terms might be used to form certain questions. So single source is a preferred seller. So there are multiple sellers, those who are basically in the good list or the white list, and there is one seller who is being used very frequently. So that seller becomes the single source, and sole source means there is only one seller, there is no other seller. So you got to keep this in mind and make sure that you understand the difference between the two, so that if any question is phrased around these two words and you can find the difference, spot the difference and select the right answer. So that's about the procurement. And now let's come to the quiz part. So here I might have to tell you something. So you can go ahead and choose the answers.
A?
Yeah, actually the answer is A, but most of the people they select the answer B, get the point. But
I know.
but even if you select the right answer, I have to explain to you that why is it the correct answer. See, it's like this. See, when you are doing a project, okay, so it's not that you will do a project only once. You want the vendors to be around for a long time, as long as you are doing business. Okay. Now, what happens that it has been observed by PMI that say over a period of time, if the buyers always get the best deal, some of the vendors they feel that this kind of a job is not lucrative enough to stay in business. So they just discontinue that kind of a work or services. So what happens? So when you have a project and you have a requirement which is very crucial, so you don't find that kind of a service or a vendor around to help you out. So that is why I say that to have a long-term and sustainable business relationship, go for a win-win proposition from both parties. Something that would work for both of you. It should be negotiated to a lower level, but it should be such that it is a win-win for both the parties. So you don't find it too steep and the other party doesn't find it too narrow to continue in business. That is the purpose of win-win, so that there is a long-term relationship. That is the primary objective of the negotiation. Right, guys? So does it sound right?
Yeah.
So this is the PMI philosophy, so that you have quality services, quality services available to you for integration in your projects, so over a long period of time. And second,
B?
so what is the answer here, guys? A, B, C, D.
B?
So it is the B, but why is it the B? See, you decide to use a software development vendor for developing the e-learning without going through the process of issuing the request for proposal. Now, what happens that when you issue a request for proposal, the vendor gives you a proposal in which he describes the solution that he would provide to your requirement, to meet your requirement. So when that happens, so you have a very good way of understanding and knowing that whether the vendor understands your requirement or not. Got the point? So that is the proposal,
Yep.
is letting you know. So if you look through the proposal, then you would be in a position to understand that this is the rightly qualified vendor. So without proposal, you have no idea of knowing the vendor qualification. So that should be your main concern in the absence of a proposal. So RFP must be given so that proposals can be evaluated and understood for the vendor qualification. So does it sound right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, let's move to the next one.
Fixed fee.
Yeah, B.
So see, if you look at the top, it says I highlighted this limited scope clarity. Now, if the scope clarity is limited, now the vendor would be apprehensive for the fact that he might end up doing a lot more than the fee he is charging. He's not sure that he is basically doing more in less money. So do you think fixed fee will work? Because the scope clarity is limited.
Well, it says what's best for your organization. If it's best for everybody, then it's probably time and material. But fixed fee would be the lowest cost for you.
And time and material, you wouldn't go for it in a large project. So time and material are basically used for smaller projects. Now
Sorry,
you,
it says large project. My
so
bad.
so you get rid of these two. Now you are left with two candidate answers, say C and D.
C.
So I will explain to you why it is C and why it is not D. So let me explain to you C. If the scope clarity is limited, so basically, cost plus fixed fee, here the cost is shared, so between the buyer and the seller in 50-50 way. Now you say that, okay, since you are not sure about the scope, let me take the responsibility of the cost of the material and you take the responsibility of the man hours that would go. Even if the scope is not clear, you cannot utilize man hour more than the requirement because as the work is getting done, so I can see some clarity. So there is no way there can be any kind of scam happening due to the fixed fee. So cost would be basically taken care of by the actual application of the material. So if there is a limited scope clarity, so you can go for the cost plus fixed fee because then the vendor won't be apprehensive of any extra work or loss and you won't have to be worried about, paying up anything extra than actually needed because you would be paying for something which is right being applied in front of you. All the material that is going into the project would be applied at your own cost and you would be able to see that you are only paying for what is actually needed to be applied, and the fixed fee would ensure that all the work which is being done is calculated on basis of a fixed daily wages or fixed hourly wages. So that is the best that you can do in these circumstances when you have limited scope clarity in a large project. Right. Okay. So how is contract closure different than administrative closure? Now, guys, do you know what is administrative closure? Contract closure, you have seen that. So
Mhm.
you close the contract in your close project. Your close process group. Now, what is administrative closure? Do you know?
Maybe you did the payroll.
Administrative closure is closure of the entire project. Official closure of the entire project.
And then it's D.
D.
Yes, right. Contract closure is done before administrative closure because you would be closing your procurement and then settlement negotiations before you can declare the project as closed. But if you declare the project as closed, then you a lot of trouble can remain. I've seen one instance in which the project was closed, but the vendor was not paid. So each time the vendor would approach the accounts department for payment of his invoice. So though the invoice had that the work is completed, but it cannot be paid because the project is closed in the system. Okay, so that is because the contract closure has to be done before administrative closure. So let's go to the next. Okay. Now I will give a hint here. Now if you look at your um, scope management knowledge area. Okay, so you have a process in the monitor and control process group, which is called the validate scope. So do you know what is the purpose of the validate scope? What is the main functionality? Why do you do this process? Validate scope.
To make sure the final result of your project is acceptable by the client. By verifying it at certain stages, yeah.
Basically, the purpose of the validate scope is to get formal acceptance from the client or the end user. Formal acceptance. Now, the thing is that PMI, how does it? Basically, it would evaluate you. It would not evaluate you for your IQ. It is not going to evaluate you for your experience. Keep in mind, PMI only and only evaluates you for the fact that how much you pick up PMI process and identify them correctly. You cannot violate any of the PMI process while you are trying to answer the PMI questions. Okay, so I think that should be a good enough hint.
That would be A then?
Yeah, that would be A, absolutely A. Because I faced this problem and I had a lot of trouble at hand because I didn't do any scope validation with client in one of my past projects, and but I did tell my boss about it that this is what is happening because the client side coordinator says that he is traveling and he is not able to respond to my emails or the parameters. He said that okay, uh, you just send the results to the client and you just copy it to me. So basically the idea is to keep verifying the scope with the customer. If the customer says no, I would be traveling, you say that okay, you designate someone else in you to stand in your place to basically to verify or validate or accept the work as done for the specification. Okay, so the correct answer is A.
And what happens? Sorry, what happens if they still don't come back with an answer? Obviously, you continue the work so you don't fall behind schedule, and your deliverables are still not validated. So what are you doing?
So let me tell you a real incident. My boss refused to do the project. I mean, I was the project manager, my boss was the director. He told the client very clearly, we obliged you last time, but we cannot do a project where there are a lot of uncertainties. If you give us a very clear specification, which is fine, or else what we can do that where we need clarification and validation, we would require a person to stand in for you and accept or give us the direction from time to time. Otherwise, we would like to do the project when you are available. So that's how you do business, because you are not doing business for charity, because you want some profits.
Well,
That's what we are here for.
I have a project now.
Mhm,
We're working for internal client,
mhm,
and I'm waiting for the HR leader to validate some communication
mhm.
deliverables that we came up with in order to continue with our communication. And the reply is pending for like 2 weeks on that, and we keep getting delayed. And saying that we're stopping doing the project is not really an option we have.
Yes. So what you are saying is right. Now let me also tell you one thing. Tell me who is the sponsor of the project. Is it the person, or is it he's the person he is coordinating, or he is the sponsor of the project himself?
Um, no, he's just benefiting from the project results,
Yeah.
or his department actually is benefiting from the project results,
So
but he's not the sponsor. Sponsor is at a different levels,
okay, fine.
not
So
necessarily above him, but different organization.
absolutely fine. So here is my recommendation according to my experience with the PMI process. You escalate it to the sponsor. You escalate it to the
Okay.
sponsor. You just show the schedules. If you are using any Microsoft project or something, you just mark out a
Mhm.
point on the Gantt chart that look, this is the date by which I should have achieved this milestone. But my dependency on him is pushing the date, because if I don't get an approval here and if I go with an uncertain, I mean specification going through, then I might have to do a lot of changes. Now you tell me that what is your take on this? Okay, so he will make it basically. I mean, I mean, he will ask him to basically look into the matter and reply back to you, or he might extend the deadline till he is available. So you have to do the things right. So you tell him, explain to him the complexities involved if you do not get a formal acceptance of the whether you have a valid scope or not. Okay, so that's a process. So you can't build something. So as I told you, I shared with you with an idea, the Leaning Tower of Pisa. In the end up, the end, you will have a tower that leans, and everybody would say, "Oh, it leans. I don't want it." But when it was starting to, starting to have some sort of tilt or a lean, so nobody said that, no, no, you just wait and fix it and let me give you the approval for that. Okay, so that should happen. So you would end up managing a failure, not a success. So as I told you once again, that I will remind you, the projects fail in the beginning, not in the end. So if you go ahead, you are basically going towards a failure, not towards a success. So definitely the time constraint is there, but fortunately it is an internal project. So there are a lot of things that you can also push in the external projects. So you'll have to basically take risk. Here you don't. Here you can push things. You can directly escalate it to the sponsor. Okay. And then you can wait for the things to fall in place. Right?
Okay, thanks.
Jacob is the project manager. Okay. So you can see through the story what's happening here in the sixth.
Somebody has a very deep breathing right now in the mic, so please mute that.
So DSA is just a name.
I'll try the fixed price again.
Yeah, actually it is fixed price. So this is just meant to divert your the attention.
A.
Yeah, I would say
Anything else?
D.
Nope.
I hope you remember the record management system, what it does. Basically, it captures all the events or the logs of the procurement events, incidents that as are happening in the project. So, this is the answer. Actually, it is to basically to implement the records management system.
okay.
T. T maybe.
Cost plus award fee.
There is no notion of forward fee there.
Where do you
I'm not
usually
here.
see $30 per hour? Actually, it's not fixed price. Then you're left with three answers.
Time.
Is it cost reimbursable? So where do you use the cost reimbursable? Basically, you would reimburse the cost of any material. Now you're left with B and D.
It's B.
It's B. So sometimes you don't get the direct answer. So you would get the correct answer by eliminating the wrong ones. So three answers which you are sure that definitely they are not the right fit. So you are left with the right answer, time and material. So basically it is about uh, the rate is fixed per unit of time. So the time is being calculated. The rate is being, total cost is being calculated as per the time utilized by the resource. Now here is a similar question being asked in a different way.
Fixed price.
Yes.
Yeah.
So fixed price carries maximum risk for the seller because if any of the inputs they increase in the price for the seller himself, so he has to still keep his own prices to the client as fixed.
A.
Yeah, A.
Yes, a procurement management plan. So this procurement management plan would basically ensure that even if the project manager is changed, but there is no change in the project's execution processes, right? So that is the benefit of all these documents. So I hope it makes a great sense to have this plan. So you must plan for each of the knowledge area, that what kind of standards, procedures, rules, regulations, and any kind of formalities, and if you have any kind of say standards to be applied, internal or external, so that should be noted down, and that should be applied along with the well-defined roles and responsibilities of the people that would help implement those. Okay, so you can put the roles only, so that's fine. People would change from time to time, but the roles are here to stay, right? So the roles will take care of the implementation of the project plan in each of the knowledge area. So that's the idea of this management plan. So you have cost management plan, you have time management plan, you have scope management plan, you have quality management, then you have human resources, then risk management, then you have procurement management. Okay, so these are all the management plans which would help you, right? So now we are left with a very small topic, which is the stakeholder management. So let's do this thing. So tomorrow we'll take up this topic, plus we will share the tips and tricks, and I will share with you the student package. And so what I want you to do right now, what you can do, the unutilized time of, or say you have got approximately 45 minutes or something, or say maybe 1 hour. So what you can do, can you guys run through the time and the cost management questions? Can you ask me something? Because I believe that there might be certain questions lurking around in the time and cost management.
Okay.
Quick question,
Yeah.
just for my planning for the future days. So we have tomorrow, as you said, the stakeholder management and tips and tricks session. There's also a session on.
Basically, I'll explain to you the
Thursday.
application process. Application process. How to fill up the form and how to collect your, projects. Okay, so what I'm going to do, that I'm going to send you a sample form after this session, and it is an Excel sheet. You can just observe it and you can fill in your own project. Okay, so that tomorrow I can discuss that if you have all the information handy and looks right before you fill up the online form, because you know what happens, that in the online forms you have to fill the right information right away. So that takes quite some time. So if you have to think and fill up at the same time, so that can be a bit of problem. So what I have done, that I have created an Excel sheet which looks like this. Just hang on for a second. I will just pull that up.
Yeah, so while you pull that up, this is what we're going to cover on Wednesday, right? My question was, is there anything else planned for Thursday as well? Wednesday is the last day.
Tomorrow is the last day, that is the Wednesday, because the total duration of this training is sort of 32 hours. So we have completed almost like 28. So let me get this for you. Yeah, so tomorrow is the last day. So, but before that, I want to make sure that if you could go through your time and cost management and you can find a question, that would be really good.
Okay, Razvan.
Yes. Yes.
So we have to complete 3 hours of e-learning. Did you get the email from the Knowledge Hut?
So is this a question? I believe that this is a question for rest of your participants, because I believe that's for you. E-learning, is it part of this training? So you can just confirm with your training coordinator.
No, it's not part of the training, but it has been told that during the training we get the 32 PDUs.
Okay.
And for the 35 PDUs we have to complete more hours of e-learning.
Okay, so that's good. So that's
okay.
So that's really good. So if you are getting the extra 3 hours, so you just go ahead and take it. You just talk to your training coordinator. Training coordinator, I believe, would be able to provide you the login, and you can continue at your own pace. So that's good. Yeah.
But Suchoy, is it? Sorry.
Yeah, I
And
think I found it. Thanks.
does everyone knows that?
Yeah, I got the email, but I was also asking Pamela, who is my contact person. She said you can choose the time in between 108 hours, days, excuse me, and then you just have to somehow do this training. But I have no question. She said there's no time limit, but you have to log in that they control that you did it. But I do not know whether they have questions on it like you do have right now, Suchoy. Do you know?
No, actually, I have no idea because these are basically planned differently for different groups and as per the marketing plan. So those are the things which are better handled by the training coordinator only. So my job is to deliver the instructor-led training and explain to you the application process, right? I mean something which concerns more with the PMI things. Internally, how they have configured this training for you. So how they have configured these 3 hours. So you can talk to them. I believe that it will be good.
Okay.
I believe that maybe after the training you might get further communication. So I believe that you just have to either talk to your coordinator, you send a mail, or you might get the communication. Okay, after tomorrow. So I believe that you should send a mail instead of waiting. Now what I want you to do is just look at the screen. So I believe that you can see a tabular information, right? So what you are seeing is one column: company, project title, job title, start, and total hours. What is the minimum criteria? The minimum criteria for the PMI application is that you should have done at least logged in at least 4,500 hours of the project management of project worked as a resource. Okay, so when you work as a resource, so what you do that in the beginning that you're mostly the hours are in the execution, which is fine. It's the okay. So as you go up in your career, you might have more hours in the planning. So what you have to do is that you have to first fill in this column, that is the company, then project title, then job title, then you have to put in the start and end, and keep in mind you shouldn't put any overlapping duration in two projects. As you go from say project 1 to project 2, the start and end date, see, end date should not overlap the start date. It can have a time gap, that's okay, but there should not be any kind of the overlap. It should be starting only after this. Now if you look at the hours, so you can count as say 1 month as 160 man hours. So if you have worked on a project say for 10 months, you can say that you have had a logged in a total working duration of 1600 man hours. So you put in the hours here. So based upon your start and finish date, which you can calculate with your calculator offline, and what you have to do, you have to divide it here. So in the beginning, so what you have to do, you have to first clear this Excel sheet, and then you have to basically divide it like I'm going to do it right in front of you. So if you think that you spend 5% of the time on the initiating process group, you put in 5 here, that will become 5%. Okay, and then if you think that if you put in more hours here in planning, put in 25%. And then execution, if you think that you were not doing any execution, you can put in say 10, not much of the execution. And since you were in the managerial role, so you were controlling, you can put in 25. And then closer, so you spend 15% time. Do you see this blue column here? It is still not green. Why it is not green? Because it is not yet 100%. So then you can say that no, let me increase the duration of the initiation. I was mostly involved in the project selection and something. So you make it 15. It is now 19. So 90 means it is still 10% short of the 100. So why we are doing this? Because we want to balance out this column. These are the actual hours. So what this percentage is doing, it is chopping up 1700 into 255, 425, 770, 425, 255. So it should again add up to 1700. So this is the checksum column. So do you see this checksum column 1530, which is not equal to 1700? So how it will become 1700? So what you do, since you are 10% short of 100, you make this as 35 and you make this as so okay, now this becomes 100%. So if it is 100%, so that is okay. So what you get is these hours. So this is how you will fill this form up, and these will be used basically in the online form. So what you do here is just you mention your contribution to the project, that how you contributed to the various knowledge. I conducted the planning meetings with the various stakeholders, and you have to describe a little bit more that what you did on the initiation, what you did for planning, what you did for execution, what you did for control, what you did for closure. So this is what you have to describe here, and that shouldn't add up to more than 150 words or under 100 words. Now you will keep this handy. So when you go to the online application form, so you will be copy pasting these fields. I will mark them up in the yellow. Okay. The yellow ones will be kept handy, and this will be copy pasted into the online form. So that's why we have created this Excel sheet. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to send you this Excel sheet. You make a copy of it. You can create another sheet within this like this, move or copy. You keep this, you read this, and you blank out the copy, wipe out the information, and then you put in your own details. Okay, so that will help you get organized along the way, and make sure that your application process is out of the way as soon as possible, because by chance if your application goes into the audit, so that will take additional time, and so that can basically put your examination date off the track. So to preempt that as early as possible, so you submit your application for the exam as early as possible, right?
Yeah, quick question on what you said in the beginning, that projects shouldn't overlap. In the organization that I'm currently working, I generally have more than one project at a time.
So you can do one thing. You pick up the project which is where you think you have been more proficient, and you mention the full time in that one only.
Okay.
So you can put in the hours in that one only. So that is fine. That's okay. That is no issue.
So I can't. Okay, it's my answer. So I can't have several projects in that start and end with at the same time.
So you just mention the account name. You just mention the account name itself as the project.
Yeah, but I think at the start and the end of the project, I have approximately 8 or 10 projects per year.
So if those 8 to 10 projects,
so I can only get one of them.
So if you think that they are part of one program, you just mention the program name here.
Yeah, I think also it's not really fair, but this is, I guess, the rule. Because if he works 8 projects at the same time, it's more work than in having only one, and there's no chance to put 8 in.
No, actually it's not more work. Actually his time is divided between the eight projects in different varying proportions. So which is fine. Well, because in software industry we like these days we have lots of mobile projects. Those mobile projects are very short duration projects. So they are ranging from 3 months to 6 months only. Earlier we used to do a lot of enterprise projects and they would be ranging from 6 months to maybe even 5 years. So we these days we don't have those kind of projects. So we have multiple projects happening at the same time, but what we do, we create a program name. So if you're working for one client, you just put in the client name and you just say that that is the one project, and you can put all your consolidated time into that project name, because sometimes people they have say 3-year project, 4-year projects, so that completes their criteria. So if your criteria has reached above 4500 hours, you just stop there, because people make mistake of listing out more projects than which is required by PMI. Now their applications have gone into the audit process. They put in more projects there. I mean, say during the last 7 years, 8 years, so they have added up to 9,000 hours. Now that went into the audit process and they are running around trying to find out those people, those who can vouch for those projects. Because you when you have this project, so you have to, let me add this column. So if you would notice on the right side that after the checksum, I'm going to put in a name here. So that is the, so you just also put in the name of the person. So you are able to make sure that you can find this person, vouching person who is going to vouch for your project. So because if it goes into the audit process, so you can get a signature from this person. So you make sure that you have this, okay, so that you are not in trouble, so you are not left high and dry. So try to keep the name of the person handy whom you think can vouch for you, and also make sure that you talk to these people that you are doing this PMI application, I mean, and can they put in your name if by chance any audit papers need to be signed, would they be willing to sign it so that they are not surprised? Okay, so most of the people, they know these days, it could be your say reporting manager, it could be your colleague, also it could be your program manager, it could be the director of the company. PMI isn't going to do any kind of very high-end investigation. What they want is that they want to maintain a standard. They want people to be truthful in their applications. That's the only purpose. Okay, if another person signs on your behalf, so that is perfectly all right. They are not going to investigate any further. So what will happen that when you submit the application, if it goes into the audit process, you would come to know within the 5 days, because on the 5th working day, either you are going to get a green flag or you are going to get a PDF file which you can print out, and it will have places or spaces where the people are required to sign. All you have to do is uh, get the signature of the people, those who are going to vouch for you, plus a photostat copy of this training certificate, plus a photostat copy of your graduation certificate or the degree. So these three things you courier it to the PMI address along with your application. I mean that is the PDF file printout, and the date is received by them. So they are going to take around the 10 working days from that date, and after that you are sure to get a green flag and go ahead from their side. So once you get a green flag, you are going to get a roll number for the examination, which you can use on the Prometric website, and you can book your slot. You don't have to pay anything on the Prometric website or anything on to the Prometric center. And one benefit is that suppose if you are traveling to another place after your training, or maybe after you got your roll number, so you can appear in the exam from any nearest Prometric center. You don't have to necessarily go to the center within your country. You can take the exam in another country also. That's not a problem. But once you are booked with a Prometric center, a particular Prometric center, after that you can't change it. Okay, you can opt for a Prometric center if you are booking it for the first time. Okay, so after this session, I'm going to send this Excel sheet to you. So you go through this today and make sure that you have filled it up as much as possible.
I have still one question.
Yeah,
Okay.
So
Okay.
when you do the vouching person, do you, in the beginning you did not show this column. Do we have to do it in general or just when we have overlapping projects?
No. You are first not supposed to show any of the overlapping dates. Okay, so this
Okay,
person.
I got that.
Okay. So in the beginning I didn't put it because it's there in the form. Then I realized that I should be putting it here as well, so that you are sure that you have a proper name, and then you are not basically trying to think of a name. So you just talk to this person also that I'm going to do an MBA, so that if any kind of the document comes and they are in anticipation that okay, so you had discussed this, so that they are not surprised. Okay, so that is the thing.
Okay. Just one question. In case of Magnus, he should rename the B column and in program title. Or how should we emphasize that it's about the program, not the project?
No. It is a project only because no, this is the way it is. It will be in the online form. So this is Excel sheet. So this is Excel sheet for your own usage only. Because once you are in the online form, you have to just copy paste from here. So we are making sure that you have all this information handy with you before you start filling the online form. Because if you look at any online form, because if you are say taking too much long time, the session may just time out. Okay, so that can be a bit of trouble. So we are making sure that you have filled in all this information, and for keeping handy that we have created this Excel sheet. Got it?
Okay, and how should we emphasize that it's about program, not the project?
No, you
The
don't have to.
application.
No, you don't have to emphasize a program. Basically, I told you that we are doing PMP, that is the project management professional. Now, because a lot of people say that I'm working on multiple projects. So what I'm saying is that you give these multiple projects just one name and put one name in the project title. Okay. So
Okay.
so do not use multiple overlapping projects. Instead of that, give it one project name and you just put in your start and end dates to total up to 4500 plus. So once you reach just the 4500 plus, you just stop there. You don't have to list all the projects you did in your career. Okay. So that is not needed. All it is needed for that you meet the basic minimum criteria of the 4500 hours. So once you reach a 4500 hour limit, so you just stop there. You don't need any. So you should list in the latest projects only. So when it totals up to 4500, you just stop there. You don't have to go to the any previous project. I mean before that period. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
One more question from my side. I'm working as a contractor for the same company for like 5-6 years. But in the same time, I've been employed by 3 different other companies as their employee. Am I supposed to put here the company I'm actually performing for?
Actually, you have
as
to.
A contractor or the
No,
one
no. I'll just tell you. You put the name of the company where there are more chances of finding a vouching person.
Yeah. Okay. So the one that I'm actually performing for.
Yeah.
Okay.
So use the one. Yeah. Okay. So that you have someone to talk to, someone to vouch for you. Because if you name a company based upon your own personal preference and you don't find the right person to vouch for you, so that can be a bit of troublesome. Okay, so make sure that where people are more accessible, where you can reach them quickly, you can explain to them, you can talk to them, they are more friendly. So you name that company only where you. So it's okay because you are working as a contractor. You could be working for multiple companies, which is a very usual thing. But where you find the environment easy and the people easy, you name that one only for this process. Okay.
Okay, clear. Thanks.
Okay, so so any question, guys, in time and cost?
Thanks.
No.
Okay.
Questions?
No questions. So it's really wonderful to know that everybody is so much clear about time and cost. So make sure that that you really are so clear, because those are the two chapters which are best learned from a trainer. And make no mistake, because rest of the chapters, once you have discussed with me and you have had talks on that, so you can always expand on that. And my recommendation is that you take up the paid membership of the PMI today itself. Okay, so that will be much better. Right, so we call it a day. So we see you again tomorrow. And tomorrow we will discuss on the stakeholder, and we will discuss further on the application process and the student package. Right?
Okay.
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 Bye.
Bye for now.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.